Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building a house in the world of Newcrest, which is one of the base game worlds. I'm going to be building a massive generations family home. So this house is built on a 40 by 30 lot, and when I say it's massive, it's absolutely colossal. I'm pretty sure this is my biggest family home that I've built to date. Don't get me wrong, I've built quite a lot of big houses before. You know, I regularly build on 40 by 30 lots. I've done a few 50 by 40 family homes before. But I've never built something to this scale with the amount of bedrooms inside, the amount of bathrooms, the amount of activity rooms in this house. I feel like if you've got a generation style legacy going on and your Sims will move into this house, honestly, they'd really appreciate it, because there are so many different things that your Sims can do, and I'm probably going to forget half of them whilst I'm doing this voiceover, but hopefully you'll be able to pick up on them as I go in and I start furnishing this house. Now, this house is going to be for my save file, so as always I have got a family in mind that are going to be living here in my save, which I absolutely love the storyline that I came up with. But before that, I do just want to go over the house and kind of give you a bit of a briefing about what's on the inside of it. So it has 6 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, and it can sleep up to 9 Sims. Now, the maximum household amount that you can have in the game for a household is 8 Sims to 1 home, unless you play with mods. If you play with mods, you can alter that, and if you wanted to, honestly, you could have like 100 Sims on 1 household. But without any mods, the maximum is 8, and so if you play vanilla style and you don't play with any mods in your game, you can have up to 8 Sims. If you do play with mods, you could have 9 Sims, but honestly, with the amount of activity rooms in this house, you could probably change it and have even more bedrooms than the current 6. Now, I did decorate the rooms to be for 2 sets of grandparents, or 1 set of grandparents and then a single widowed grandma, and then a set of parents, a teenager, a kid and a toddler. And I was thinking about it, and if you wanted to, you could have 4 different generations living in this house. You know, you could have the children, the parents, the grandparents, and then their parents, and have great grandparents. Honestly, it's up to you, but there is so many different bedrooms for pretty much every single life stage that we have in the game, not including babies, because babies aren't a life stage, they're an object. Moving on. So as well as the 6 bedrooms and the 6 bathrooms, there is also a number of different activity rooms for your Sims to do in this house. Honestly, you can make them into more bedrooms if you want to, but I feel like having like 9 bedrooms in a house, especially if you play without mods and having only 8 Sims, probably a bit too much, a bit too over the top. But honestly, if that's what you want to do, you do you. But there is a number of activity rooms in this house, one of them being a playroom for the kid and the toddler in this household. I absolutely love the way it came together, and I got to use a bunch of different things that I can't normally fit into, you know, like regular suburban family homes in children and toddler bedrooms. One thing, for example, you know, the Dream Home Decorator game pack, you know, that massive tent that we got, that is so difficult to fit into like a normal 30 by 20 family home. But as this house had a dedicated room for basically kids to have the time of their life in, I was able to fit it into the playroom. There is also a doll's house in there, there is drawing tables, there is, you know, multiple different teddy bears, and basically every single activity that either toddlers or children can do in the game is placed into this house somewhere. I didn't put the science table or the little teddy bear, you know, the ones that your Sims can nurse, into the playroom, but they are both in the child's room upstairs, so you know, the kids and the toddler, they're never going to get too bored. But as well as that, there is also a home office and a library, which kind of goes quite nicely with the storyline for the family going to be living in this house. It's quite, I don't want to say it's quite grand, but it's a bit fancy, but not, you know, like, I always say this, but you know, Get Famous, you know, the expansion pack, there's a lot of furniture that we got in that game pack, or it's not a game pack, it's an expansion pack, but there's a lot of furniture that we got from that pack that is a bit yellowy gold, bit, you know, cheetah print, just honestly really not my cup of tea. It's not that kind of fancy, it's like a nice suburban family home kind of fancy, if you get what I mean. But then as well as that, there is also one more room, which is a garage, which is not really an activity room, but there is a woodworking table in there, and if you wanted to, you can maybe make it into like a home gym or something. Honestly, the possibilities with this house is endless. If you are looking for a house that is just filled with loads of stuff, I mean, you might have found it, because hopefully you like it and you might want to download it and paste it into your game. Now, there is also a bunch of different activities in this house that aren't really attached to a room, but they're kind of like in other rooms. So for example, I tried to make the dining room quite fancy-ish. You're not going to really understand until I tell you the storyline for the Sims that are going to be living in this house, which I will do in a minute, but I tried to make it quite, you know, like quite formally-ish, emphasize on the ish in the dining room. And so you see at the front where I put these industrial loft kit windows, which by the way, I absolutely love them windows. Ever since we've got the industrial loft kit, I think I've used them windows in so many different builds, but they're not even just industrial style builds. And I honestly thought when we first got that kit that they were going to be limited to that type of style. but I've used them in Mediterranean homes, I've used them in this family home, I've used them in, of course, an industrial penthouse. You had to do it when the kit came out. I think I've also used it in a vampire family home that I built in Forgotten Hollow. Honestly, them windows are pretty much my favourite ones that we've now got into the game. I feel like they're so versatile, and honestly at first I didn't think they was, but in the room where them windows are, it ends up being quite a big dining room, and there's like a grand piano in there. There's also like a nice like long lounge chair, you know, the ones that we've got from Dream Home Decorator where your Sims can lounge on. There's one of them in there. There's also a bunch of different chess tables around the house. There is a lot in this house for your Sims to do. They're never going to get bored, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to give you a bit of a briefing about the house itself, you know, what's in it and whatnot, before I go on and talk about currently what I'm doing right now, but then also the storyline for the household that are going to live in this house. Now, before I go on and talk about the storyline, I do want to mention that I did have to cut out some of the landscaping, and I know I normally don't do that. I normally try to keep in all the landscaping because people tell me that they like to watch my landscape. And if you like to watch my landscape, I'm going to keep it in my videos, do you know what I mean? Like, if it's what you want to see, I'm going to do it. But unfortunately, where this video ended up being so long because it took me so long to build this house, currently without screenshots, it's 31 minutes. With the landscaping, I was able to scrape off like an extra minute and a half. And so I did cut out some of the landscape in the back garden, but hopefully you won't mind. You'll see it as I kind of like twist around and I furnish the back garden anyway, but I did just want to mention that. And as well as with the bathrooms, I did have to cut all the bathrooms out. I mean, normally I cut out all the bathrooms but one. I only ever show the furnishing of one because, let's be honest, bathrooms are quite boring to watch. But I felt like I had to either cut out a bathroom or one of the grandparents' bedrooms on the inside. And I don't know about you, but I would rather watch someone furnish a bedroom over a bathroom because, I mean, bathrooms are well boring. Like, what would you put in them? A toilet, a sink, a shower, maybe a bathtub. And there's not really much to them, and pretty much all the bathrooms look exactly the same as well. I've included some of the pictures in the screenshots. The only one that doesn't look the same as the other ones is the teenager's bathroom, because the teenager, the parents, and then one of the grandparents, or the set of grandparents, they have en-suites. But in the teenager's ensuite, I try to decorate it to be for a teenager. So I use, you know, the Parenthood bath and shower combo. You know, the one that's got all like the nice designs and, you know, fancy patterns. I place that in there, and then on the sink I place down like loads of makeup palettes and lipsticks and perfumes and whatnot. Tried to make it feel like an actual teenager's bathroom, but apart from that, they all pretty much look the same. But yeah, unfortunately I did have to cut them out. Hopefully you don't mind too much, but they will be in the screenshots anyway. But anyway, moving on from that and actually talking a little bit more about the household that are going to be living in this house for my save file. I am so excited to talk about it. I've just kind of been like working this story up in my head just all week, and I'm just so excited to finally talk about it. But the household consists, like I've mentioned, of 3 grandparents. One of them are going to be a married couple, the other one is going to be widowed. Then there's going to be 2 parents. I personally imagine to be a mum and a dad. It goes without saying you can have any type of parents living in this house if you do please to. It's just kind of like what I was imagining when I was kind of like building up the storyline in my head, as well as 1 teenager, 1 kid, and then 1 toddler. And the storyline kind of it's mainly on the mother of the household. The storyline is kind of, you know, it's her storyline. The other household members just kind of go along with it, if you know what I mean. So the storyline is, when the mum was growing up, she had a really hard upbringing, you know, for some reason. And by the way, I feel like I need to give context. You know, I said there was the 3 grandparents. The grandparents that are like a married couple, and you know, their grandma and grandpa, which by the way, if I accidentally call the grandma a nan, it means grandma, because this is the thing, I never say grandma or grandmother in like that's not in my vocabulary. I say nan. So if you hear me say nan, it means grandma. It's just what I call my nan or my grandma, you know what I mean. But I imagine that the grandparents that are married couple and they're together are going to be the dad's side of the family, and then the single widowed grandmother or the nan is going to be the mum's mother. Hopefully that makes sense. But I imagine that when the mum was growing up, so the mum of the household, when she was growing up, for some reason, the nan in this household, the single widowed one, just couldn't take care of her. I'm not sure what was going on, and I might build upon it at a later date. But currently I'm a little bit stuck, so maybe you can help me out, maybe give you some ideas. But either way, I imagine that when the mum was growing up, for some reason her mum just couldn't take care of her, and there was maybe there was kind of like a negative relationship between the mum and what was her dad. I imagine that what was her dad has now since passed away. Maybe they had a really bad relationship, maybe they didn't get on, and because of that, like, she rebelled or something. Either way, whatever the storyline is going to be for why she had a bad upbringing with her parents when she was younger, I'll decide on that on a later date. but she had a bad upbringing, and because of that she had to go into the foster care system. Now I really hope that we get an in-depth foster care system into the game, because currently we don't have one, but you can only adopt children. But even with that, I would love for that to be a little bit more in-depth. You know, whenever you go to adopt, it's the same for a cat or a dog when you adopt a child in the game, if you think about it, because you just go onto the computer and then a selection of kids or babies or toddlers' faces come up and you choose one. I really wish there was kind of like a way that your Sims could go to somewhere and, you know, like visit children or, you know, visit some animals or whatnot. I wish it was a little bit more in depth, and I'm holding out still for Generations. It's actually a bit of a laughing stock because I thought we was going to get Generations this November. It's now December and we're nearly halfway through December, and there's going to be no more pack releases for this year, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure next week we're getting a free holiday update for the free holiday pack. That's completely besides the point. Anyway, I imagine that when the mum was growing up, she had to go through the foster care system, and with that she had a really bad experience with it. I still feel like the whole time that she was in the system, she still had a somewhat of a relationship with her mum, because obviously you might be thinking, hang on, but her mum lives with her now. I feel like as she got older, she kind of like reconnected with her. Maybe she had a very distant relationship or whatever the cause was, I'm not too sure. But she was going through the system and she had a really bad experience with it. You know, she was put to one family, to another family. It just really wasn't very nice for her, and she didn't really have a stable place. Like, she didn't really have a stable home. She was always being like turned from one place to another place. She was going in and out of all these different secondary schools. You know, she was going everywhere, and she didn't really get to stay in one place, and because of that she kind of had this negative feeling towards the system that put her in that place, because they didn't really look after her properly. And so with that she decided to, you know, like, get her head down. She somehow managed to get some really good grades in school despite even going from one school to another. You know, I imagine that she would probably go to, you know, like a new school every 2 or 3 months or something, and, you know, she didn't really have a stable education. But somehow she was able to go and get a really good high school education, and then with that she went to university. She studied at some degree, I'm not sure if there is one that can relate to politics. I haven't played through the university system myself in a while. I know there is law, so maybe she did law or something, but either way she wanted to study to become a politician, and she basically wanted to turn all of her negative, like, childhood memories and try and do something positive out of it. And she wants to try and change kind of like other Sims' lives, and with that she wants to become a politician, or possibly, you know, like a mayor of Newcrest, maybe push the boat out and become the Prime Minister, or maybe even possibly the President of this Sims world. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's going to be a good one though. She's not going to be having Christmas party with cheese and wine, if you know what I mean. She's basically just going to be a Sim that wants to make a difference, and she wants to try and make it so kids that are going through the same system that she went through, and even other systems as well, she doesn't want them to have the same upbringing and be in the same situation that what she was when she was growing up. And so because of that she wants to have a really positive impact on just basically like the world, if you want to put it that way. And so because of that she is trying to become someone with some sort of, you know, authority, some sort of power to make these changes. And so that is kind of the reason why there is such a big grand home office library situation where I imagine she holds a lot of different meetings. That is also why in this household there's going to be quite a big dining room, and it has a grand piano, because I imagine that maybe she hosts things quite regularly. You know, people will come round and they talk about different strategies and stuff like that. That is just kind of like the idea that I've got for the mum. You know, she grew up in a really bad, you know, state. She didn't really have a real home when she was growing up. She was always being turned from one house to the other, and it was honestly really sad for her. And then because of that, and because of what she's been through, she just wants to make it better for other people, and so she's trying to make a positive change. But then with that, talking about the storyline for the other household members, now I don't have much of an in-depth storyline, and I know I have moved on and I've started doing it the inside, like furnishing of the kitchen and whatnot, and I don't want to talk over it too much, but I'll kind of discuss the individual Sims as we get on into their rooms. But in terms of her husband, I imagine that he used to be in some sort of career. Honestly, I didn't really think too much into it, because I imagine that as soon as his wife started to become, you know, a little bit more popular within, you know, just in general, and started to get a little bit more traction towards her, he had to stop being whatever he was doing as a career, and he had to then become a stay-at-home parent, and now he looks after the children, which I think is quite a nice storyline. But I feel like he has a little bit of envy towards his wife, because his wife can go and, you know, do all these amazing things and make all these positive changes in the world, but then he's just kind of at home, you know, cooking the dinner, doing the washing. It's kind of like a little bit of not the life that he signed up for, but I still think that they love each other regardlessly, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there might be something that you might be able to unpack in gameplay. But that was kind of like the storyline that I had just for the parents. Like I said, when it comes around to doing their individual rooms, I'll talk more about the other household members of this household, but I just don't want to talk over whilst I'm furnishing, you know, like the kitchen. I mean, the kitchen literally just ended, and so now I've moved on into the dining room, and I kind of want to talk about the process and what I'm doing and what I'm using and whatnot. But as you would have seen, I've already done the hallway and, you know, the kitchen. In the kitchen, it ended up being quite big. There's 2 ovens in the kitchen. I tried to make them look a little bit built in, and so I put some tile behind them and then used some columns to kind of like section them off from the rest of the room. And then, as you would have seen in the hallway, ends up being quite basic. I mean, there's a hallway table, there is somewhere for your Sims to put their hat and coat on, you know, it's just quite a generic hallway. But now I have moved on into quite a grand dining room. Now, you would have seen, I did just pull out a high chair because there is going to be a toddler in this household, but realistically, whenever I play the game myself, my Sims never seem to keep their toddlers in the high chair. They always take them out, and if we're being honest, it's actually easier for your Sims just to put some food on the counter and the toddler to go and get it, I find anyway in my personal gameplay. And so there doesn't end up being a high chair in this dining room. I felt like it didn't really fit in as well, being like a formal place where, you know, their mum will hold meetings and have business people come round and whatnot. I feel like having a high chair in the corner will maybe kind of kill the fanciness of it all, and so I decided to delete it. But in the dining room, I decided to go for a base game table, some Dream Home decorated chairs, and then a grand piano in the corner, just in front of them industrial loft kit windows. I don't feel like any member of the family in this household is going to be one to really play the piano, because I feel like it's going to be a musical instrument that they hire people to come and play when they host all these events and they host all these grand dinner parties and stuff. Maybe the teenager will dabble in it a little bit, but again, I'll talk about that once I've moved on and I've started furnishing the teenager's room. But currently you can see I've now moved on into the next room, which is kind of like the lounge living room space. So in here I decided to go for the Paranormal Stuff pack sofas. Honestly, can you blame me? They are honestly my favourite, and I need to stop using them so much. And I have got something planned that I really want to use them in, which I'm not going to tell you about. It will come out next week. But I do use them a lot, but they are my favourite. I just want some more sofas with different pillows and throws, and they just look so comfortable. They look like the most realistic sofas that we have in the game, I think anyway. But I decided to pair them with some Cottage Living armchairs. Then I used the Cottage Living fireplace, moved objects, a little TV on top of it, and then there is also a bookcase in the corner. And then behind the sofa, I was a bit stuck on what to do, so I ended up putting this side table and then just cluttering it up with, I think, some flowers, a lamp, and then maybe a picture frame or something. That's something actually that I really want some more of, and I was thinking about it a lot when I was doing this build, because you would see me place down them base game, it's just like little small photo frames. I place them down a bunch. I place them down in the hallway, I place them down in that lounge room. I was thinking when I actually create the family, I'm going to change them pictures out to be household family like pictures, you know, like pictures of the grandparents, pictures of the toddler and whatnot. And so I placed them quite a lot in this build, but I will switch them out for my save file. I'm going to do that a lot in my save file as well. I'm going to switch out a lot of the paintings in the houses to be other things, you know, like personal things, more personal things to the Sims, you know, like personal photos and whatnot. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the playroom. I love this room so much. I had so much fun furnishing it. I sized down a bunch of different toys. I sized up a bunch of different toys. I used some debug toys. There's that little bridge you can see. That's from Parenthood, and it's one of the projects that your Sims can make. You know, when they come home from school, either a teenager or a child, they can make that as like a school extra credit kind of thing. I used the bad one because it's meant to be, I think, the bridge from San Francisco. I think anyway. But there's a bad version of it, and I thought it would be really good as kind of like a decorational piece. And then underneath it I placed like a little car. I was imagining that maybe the kid was playing with it and putting the car on the bridge and stuff, and I just had so much fun in here. As you can see, it is just filled with so many different toys and activities for your Sims to do. There is also a void crotter station in the middle. I do want to mention before I forget, and I feel like it's a good time to mention it whenever I do very cluttered up rooms like this, but As always, the build has been play tested. I ran into a few problems, but honestly, most of them were minor. Some of them were like a chair was too close to a wall, so you simply couldn't sit down and whatnot. But that whole entire playroom works absolutely fine, so you're not going to run into any problems. The only one problem that will have a little bit of a change when you download this house. You remember when I was doing the kitchen, I was talking about the storyline, or I sized down a counter and then put the coffee machine on top of it, try and get it so I could place the coffee machine wherever I wanted in the counter. I was kind of hoping, I was kind of like pushing my luck to see if it would work. Unfortunately, I came around to playtesting it and it didn't work, so I did just move the coffee machine onto a normal counter. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is going to be the room for the grandparent that is widowed. I imagine a nan, personally. Now, I didn't really have that much of an in-depth storyline for her. You know, she was the mother of the mother in this household, and so she didn't really have that much of a great relationship with her daughter when she was growing up. But I imagine as they got older, they kind of like, you know, rekindled and whatnot. And recently her husband passed away, and so she decided to move into this house. I didn't really imagine her to have any career or anything like I did for the other grandparent, but I just imagined her to be a really sweet little old woman. You know, she does a little bit of embroidery. You can see that I just pulled out one of my saved rooms, which, by the way, that saved room that I just pulled out that has all of these cross stitching patterns, I've already uploaded that onto the gallery, and it's just got a bunch of different things that you could basically just decorate the inside of your Sims houses with. It really comes in handy, especially when you're doing grandparents' houses or grandparents' bedrooms. I feel like I use that quite a lot. And if I ever do a grandparent's room, the majority of the time I do end up placing some cross-stitching patterns into it, because to me, cross-stitching and, you know, like knitting, it's just very elder-like to me. And so, yeah, if you're interested, that's on the gallery. I think I uploaded it like 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, so you might have to scroll a bit, but it is on the gallery if you are interested. But just to finish off that grandma's kind of like storyline, I imagine where she didn't really have much of an upbringing for her child. You know, her daughter was kind of put into foster care. She didn't really get to raise her like she maybe would have liked to. I feel like she feels maybe a bit guilty for it, and maybe now she has a bit of a part in her grandchildren's upbringing. You know, where the husband is the one that mainly raises the household, mainly, you know, does the cooking, does the cleaning, does kind of like the general upkeep for the house. Maybe the grandma also has a little bit of authority over the children. Maybe she kind of takes over her daughter's place and kind of acts a bit like a mother figure, as their mum is always in business meetings and is always doing something related to their job. I feel like they're definitely going to be a workaholic, put it that way. The mother in this household, they love their job and they are spending the majority of their time doing what they love for a career. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the garage, utility, laundry room, whatever you want to class it as. So in here there ends up being 2 washing machines, 2 tumble dryers, and a woodworking table. Honestly, you could fit so much more in here. But if I'm being honest, I really didn't know what else to add into this room that would fit for this family, because 9 times out of 10, if I'm doing a garage, there'll always be a boxing bag in it, because I feel like boxing bags or some sort of gym equipment kind of go well within garages. But I didn't really feel like anyone in this household is going to be that dedicated to fitness that they're going to want to have some gym equipment in their house. And so if you wanted to, obviously you can add whatever you want into that room. You can maybe make it into like a little music room if you want to. If the grand piano wasn't enough and your Sims are maybe into the violin or the guitar or something, then maybe you can make it into like a little music room. I think that would be quite a good idea, but I just basically wanted it to be as realistic as possible in there. And so on the counters by where the woodworking table is, I just cluttered it with a ton of different hammers and saws and tape measures and all these different kind of things that I feel like you would find in a garage. And I also put 2 washing machines and 2 tumble dryers. As this is a very big house and there's a lot of different bedrooms, there's a lot of different Sims, I feel like your Sims would probably put a load of washing on and then someone would get changed and then they're going to have more dirty washing to do. And so I feel like having multiple different washing machines in a house of this size was probably a good idea. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the home office library situation. As you can see, there is like a wall of bookcases behind the desk. There is a fireplace in this room, and there is also 2 armchairs, which are the same ones that I use in the lounge room from Cottage Living. I imagine that the mum spends so much time in here. They have so many different business meetings in here, and so I really wanted to try and reflect that, but also make it seem a little bit fancy. So I wanted to make it seem like an actual home office. So I included things like a file cabinet in the corner. I included like this pie chart thing that was maybe a strategy that they're working on, or maybe some type of chart for something. I don't know. I just wanted it to feel like an actual office. And so I placed down a lot of different items that we got from Get to Work that are in the unlocked category. You know, if your Sims, they have to unlock it basically. So I placed down a bunch of them into that room. But now you can see I've now moved on into the next room, which is going to be the other set of grandparents' room. So the storyline for this set of grandparents mainly focuses on the grandmother rather than the granddad. And so I'll tell you the granddad first, and then I'll tell you about the grandmother afterwards, because I believe the next room after this one that I furnish is the teenager's room, and the grandmother and the teenager have quite a close relationship, and it connects well together. So the granddad in this household, I imagine, is just going to be your average Joe granddad. I imagine him to be very sweet. I imagine that once upon a time he had a career in the fisherman job, which is a career that we got from, I believe, the Island Living expansion pack, or it might be base game now, I'm not sure. But I imagine that he really enjoys fishing. He often goes fishing with the children in this household, mainly the kid, more so than the teenager. And you know, he's just like the average Joe, kind of quiet granddad. Whereas his wife, the grandmother, is the complete opposite. I imagine that years ago she had a one-hit wonder song and she did really well off it, and she's never let anyone forget about it since. I imagine that she's going to be a really high maintenance, kind of glamorous grandmother, and so she's going to often go and get, you know, her nails done. She's going to go and get massages. She's going to go and she's a very high maintenance sim. And I feel like if anyone was to ask her to do anything, she kind of reminds them that she had this one good song and she was in the public eye for 15 minutes once upon a time, and she never lets anyone forget about it. Now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the teenager's room. Now, I imagine that the teenager really looks up to their grandmother. You know, they think that they are the best person in the whole entire world, and they really aspire to be someone like them. And then as I was decorating the room, I was thinking that maybe the teenager wants to take after their grandmother, and maybe wants to also release a single themselves. You know, maybe they want to record a song or two, and so I do end up putting a microphone into this room. But then I was kind of debating on what else they might want to do, like what other hobbies might they pick up. And then I kind of came to the idea of maybe they're a teenager and they don't know what they want to do with their life. And I feel like that happens so regularly as well. Like, everyone's asking you, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you go to university? And a lot of people just don't know. Like, just some people just want to be happy at the end of the day. And so maybe this sim is just trying to dabble in a bunch of different things. Maybe they like art, so, you know, maybe they might take up art. Maybe they like doing video games, and maybe they want to be some sort of, you know, programmer for video games or something like that. I imagine that they don't have anything set in stone, and maybe it's a little bit stressful for them, because I imagine that they get into the end of the teenager life stage, and soon they're going to have to age up. You know, they're going to have to become a young adult and go and get a job doing something somewhere, and they're a bit stressed out about it because they don't know what they want to do. And so in that room I placed down an easel for maybe if they wanted to take up art. I placed down like a little tablet so your Sims can also maybe become like a graphic designer or something. I placed down the microphone like I mentioned. I feel like there are so many different possibilities that Sim could go into, but themselves, they're just not sure what they want to do. And like I said, I feel like that is very realistic, because a lot of people they don't know what they want to do for a career, and I haven't really done a Sim like that yet. And so maybe that's something that they're really struggling with, and maybe something that you could also, you know, expand upon in gameplay. That was just kind of like the idea that I had for the teenager. But anyway, you can see that I've now moved on into the next room, which is the toddler's room. The toddler's room is definitely the smallest room in this house, but it's still, even saying that, it's still quite big for a toddler's room. I mean, there is enough things for toddlers to do in here. There is the toddler bed, there is a bookcase, there is a little armchair next to the bed. I always like putting an armchair next to the toddler bed, because when you get your Sims to read a toddler bedtime story, normally they go and sit on it, and I just like that about it. So there's that in there. There is also a chest of drawers. There is just a bunch of different things in the toddler's room that toddlers can do, as well as the playroom downstairs. Like I said, the child and the toddler in this household, they're honestly never going to get bored, because everything that they would want to do is basically in this house somewhere. But now moving on into the next room, which happens to be the child's room. So in here I decided to go for a dream home decorated bed, and then I decided to use a lot of different furniture as well from that game pack. So you can see on the left hand side there's a bookcase, and then I make like the wardrobe part of the bookcase. I had a few little cubed shelves, and then I kind of make it like a little bit of a feature in the room. There is also the little dinosaur teddy bear in the corner. I wasn't really too stuck on a story. Like, nothing kind of gelled with me with this child. I couldn't really think of a storyline for them. I was thinking that maybe they want to one day grow up and become maybe like a policeman or like a firefighter or something, which we don't currently have in the game, but I'm really holding out for a firefighter active career. We had a firefighter active career in The Sims 3, and it's one of the best jobs that you can have in that game. I enjoy it so much, but I didn't really have I wasn't really sticking to a certain idea. Maybe they just want to grow up and become someone that maybe just earns a lot of money. Maybe that's just what they want to do. Who knows? I honestly didn't have that much of a storyline in mind for this child. I always say this, children and toddlers are so difficult to give in-depth storylines to, and this is one of the reasons why we really need generations in the game, because it would just add so much more depth. I'm really holding out for more than 4 different child aspirations, because we've only got 4 at the minute, and that is, the game's been out for a very long time at this point, and to only have 4 different aspirations and basically 4 different types of personality that children can be, whether they're going to be really into, doing chess and getting really good grades, or whether they're going to be a social butterfly. Like, I feel like with children it's very difficult to give an in-depth storyline. So maybe the kid wants to grow up one day and become a policeman or a firefighter, something like that. Again, like I said, we don't have firefighters yet in the game, but I am holding out for them. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the parents' bedroom. So in here, I decided to go for the Dream Home Decorator bed in kind of like the orangey swatch. I don't honestly think I've used that swatch before. It's not like I don't like it, but there's other swatches that I would have preferred, but I feel like all the other beds and all the different bed swatches that I could have picked from were too similar to the grandparents' rooms, and so I decided to go for this orangey ready bed. And then in here there is a fireplace, a bookcase, there is a chest of drawers, and then there is also a door that goes into their ensuite as well. They've got quite a big ensuite. I think it's got both a bathtub and a shower, but that might be completely wrong. But anyway, you can see I've now moved on into the last room of the house, which is the hallway. I'm just going to go around, clutter it up, put a few plants in the corner, put a chest table, and I think also a bookcase. But anyway guys, I am actually going to end this voiceover here, so as always you can download this build via the gallery. My origin ID is JessicapieYT, or you can search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in my next Sims 4 speedbuilding video. Bye guys!